The blossoms are all blossoming. Look at the blossom in my town. Isn't it astounding? It's so pretty. I didn't announce coming on because I just have been super busy with my health scare. So I'm here if you want to join. If you want to comment down in the chat box, please do. If you watch back later, then great. So because this happened to me, and I know lots of people often ask me, how does the Italian state healthcare work? I can't get over how beautiful the blue sky and the cherry trees. Isn't that stunning? So beautiful, this beautiful part of my town. It's a pedestrian walkway with these cherry trees lining the whole thing. So yeah, it's glorious. So what happened? Let me get straight to it. I'm going to sit over here on the bench so that you can, I can relax and I can chat to you without standing in the flow of the people walking. You'll still see the blue sky and maybe a bit of the cherry tree that side or that side. That one's better. Okay, so I mean, obviously this is my private life, so I don't want to tell all the details, but I have a genetic heart arrhythmia, but it doesn't give me much trouble. I take care of myself. I make sure that I have the right trace elements, potassium, magnesium, my vitamins. I eat well. I live in Italy, so I don't have any stress. If only that was true. But yeah, so I look after myself. But anyway, fast forward, or not fast forward, but fast back, rewind, should I say, rewind to last weekend. It was Saturday, I think. Yes, Saturday. And I was getting ready for bed. It was just before midnight. I'd had a normal day, nothing extraordinary. But I had this sort of weird feeling in my tummy, just sort of a discomfort. I took my blood pressure, which I normally do every day, and that was slightly elevated, but not much. Certainly wasn't, massively high. By the way, don't forget to like. The like button is right up there. You can see it because it helps me to make these for you. And if you're new here, drop down in the comments later and let me know who you are. And just tell me this is my first time watching. I love to know that. Sorry about the sunglasses, but otherwise I will literally be scringing my eyes up looking at you in this bright sunshine that we've got today. Everybody's out, look, walking their dogs and just enjoying. All the plants are being planted. Look at this beautiful cherry blossom in the trees on this fabulous building. Sky is so blue and so gorgeous. People out eating lunch. It's midday. Isn't it glorious, my town? Isn't this building the best thing ever? Anyway, back to reality. Thank you for joining. So yes, it was about midnight and I was about to go to bed, and I sort of, plugged my phones in as I usually do my bedtime routine, lit a little candle to have my special prayer time and that. And yeah, and it was quiet, everything was great. And suddenly my heart started racing. And when I say racing, I mean like a galloping horse. It was like Ascot Racecourse. It really was. I occasionally have a little bit of a sort of flutter, or, my heart sort of races a bit. Don't we all live for our hearts to race a bit? But anyway, this just was very strident and very extended and just kept going. And it felt like a long time, but maybe 10 minutes into this, I thought, no, this is not right. This is bad. This is not good. I know this is not good. I need to do something. So what did I do? I live alone, so that's always an issue. because perhaps if I didn't live alone, somebody could have just spoken to me and we could have monitored how it went. But I was concerned that my condition involves having a syncope, which is the medical term, which is fainting in layman's terms. And if I fainted, who was going to call the ambulance, and who was going to know that I had fainted, and who was going to bring me back from from my journey towards the other life? So basically, so I'm sitting in bed and I'm thinking, oh God, I hate going to emergency because the specialists I need are not an emergency. Obviously, there's a doctor on duty who specializes in emergency medicine, of course, and they have to cover all eventualities. But because I have quite a rare condition, and because it involves my heart, and because I've been to emergency before and know exactly how this goes down, I dread it. So I try and avoid it in every way. I also have a loop recorder, which is a small device that's in my chest. I did do a video about it if you're interested and you have the same condition. And so that will record if anything major happens to my heart. In other words, if my heart stops, if my heart does what it was doing now, which was racing like a racehorse. So they always said if that happened, they would call me, but it is Saturday night and I know that this is not good. I start to feel very lightheaded. I can't breathe very well. And those are the two signs. Okay, the other sign is if you have pain, it's definitely you have to go to the emergency room. I didn't have pain, but I was getting breathless and I had this distinct feeling that I was going to faint. And my big panic was I needed to unlock the door. I needed to make sure that I could give them the code downstairs to get in the gate, because if the ambulance come, they have to get upstairs and they have to have the code for the gate. Anyway, so got all my stuff together, got a little bag together while I still had the presence of mind, threw my phone and my stuff and called the ambulance. They came within about 5-10 minutes. They were pretty good. I had to let them in downstairs. I was still talking, thank goodness. I was panicking a little when I made the emergency call because I felt like I was going to faint. I felt like maybe I couldn't put my urgency across, being as that I was speaking in Italian, which I speak fluently, but it's still not my home language. So I was panicking a bit. Anyway, they came upstairs. There were 4 of them. They got some details from me over the phone. They also got the gate code, not the goat, but the gate code from me, which I was so scared I'd given them the wrong code. But anyway, I could hear the ruckus downstairs, so I knew they'd arrived. And of course, everybody else in my building was possibly asleep or at least watching a movie, certainly not in the corridors. And so, yeah, they came in and immediately one of them hooked me up to the monitor, the heart monitor, so they could do an ECG, see what my heart was doing. And they said, yeah, it's crazy. It's racing. By now it had been racing for about 30 minutes and it wasn't slowing down. They weren't happy. So immediately what they normally do is put you in the ambulance. When I say normally, I mean, I could have been having a heart attack for all we knew. They would let you have your blood test and put the drip in emergency because they need to get you. But she felt it necessary to put a drip in because she didn't know what was going to happen in the ambulance to me. So basically, it was quite unusual. She was quite... should I say cavalier and casual? She didn't clean, with alcohol as they usually do before they put a drip in your arm, needle in your arm. She just very casually opened something, and before I knew it, she'd stuck it in there. The blood went everywhere. The blood was spraying everywhere. Because usually I have an issue, they can't find my vein, and then I have to have 3 holes. So I've got a bit of a phobia about needles being stuck in my arm. But anyway, she managed to get the drip in, and then, she was casting around for something to wipe the blood with. She should have been better prepared. And I said to her, don't you put gloves on? Because normally, when they put a drip in or whatever, they put gloves on it. She said, no, I don't like gloves. I said, okay, well, great. She said, and anyway, which is quite an Italian thing to become defensive if you may ask any question. She said, your blood could infect me. I said, well, exactly. That's exactly why you wear gloves. Anyway, that went by the wayside. That was fine. So now I've got this huge drip in my arm, and now, of course, I hate it because now you can't move, you can't push yourself up. I'm already feeling faint. I'm sitting on the side of a chair while she's putting the drip in, and they're saying to me, okay, we have to bundle you up. We'll go downstairs. They brought the stretcher. They put me on the stretcher. I had to lock up the house, make sure everything was in the fridge. So, you know, I could be gone a couple of days. I didn't know. Anyway, thank God we have an excellent lift, a big lift in my building, an elevator for those of my American friends who are watching, an elevator, a lift. Yeah, so some of them walked down the stairs. I got bundled into the lift and off I went. And in fact, when we were downstairs in the lobby going out into the street, because there's sort of a entrance hall and then the gate, one of the ambulance women, the woman who stuck the needle in my arm, nearly fell down the stairs going to the basement. So I don't know, she obviously lost her footing and wasn't concentrating. And I just imagined the disaster if she had tumbled down those stairs and had a concussion. And then there'll be two of us being raced to the hospital, one of them the ambulance person and me. Anyway, so they got me on the stretcher. It was pouring with rain. We got outside, it was still raining. They put me in the ambulance and they started chatting to me to make sure that I was still lucid and that, you know, my breathing was okay. And there were 4 of them, so it was quite nice. Obviously one of them driving. And it took us about, I don't know, 15 minutes to get to the hospital on the roads. With all the rain and stuff, they were going quite cautiously, I think. They did have the lights on, I must say. But anyway, arrived, got wheeled straight in, because when you arrive in an Italian hospital, and it may be similar to your hospital, I don't know, I'm just telling you my situation here in Italy because I presume you're interested, because lots of people want to know how the Italian health system works. You are coded immediately from white, which is not urgent at all, right up to red. I think there are 4 or 5 codes. I was orange, which is one step down from red. Red is if you're cut out of a car and you literally have to be run into theatre, or if you have a major heart attack and you're unconscious, you would come in on red. I was kind of between orange and red. So anyway, they took me in and immediately the emergency medicine doctor spoke to me. She spoke to me about, by the way, before I got out of the apartment, I grabbed my folder, which is what I always do because all my history and my condition is all, you know, is all recorded there, and they can see what's happened in the last year, and that's really useful to them because, and one of the things that worries me, if ever I fainted or it was in the street or whatever, I wouldn't have that folder and I would arrive at the hospital and it would be pretty much a nightmare because I have a rare enough condition that it's already a problem for them if they have a whole folder, because they all stand around and scratch their heads, and then eventually they call the cardiologist, and even the cardiologist sometimes stands around and scratches their head. It could be a woman or a man. Anyway, so yeah, she started asking me a million questions. I said, look, the easiest thing to do is look at the folder. I brought it, and I was desperate to get a bedpan because I really needed to do a wee. Yeah, you know how these things do. Emergencies make you want to have a wee, or a pee, as Americans call it. So basically, they didn't want to bring me the bedpan because they said, no, we occupied with your heart. We're looking at your heart. You can't have a bedpan. I didn't see why I couldn't have a bedpan while they were occupied looking at my heart. I was already hooked up to the monitor. So they took the monitor from the ambulance off, put their monitor on, and off we were running. And my heart was still sort of 160, 180 beats per minute, which is way too fast. Normally, my resting heart rate is 60 beats per minute. You can drop down in the comments, I hope you do, and let me know your resting heart rate. If you know it, you should know it. Mine's about 60, which is pretty healthy. I walk numerous times a day and try to do whatever I can. Obviously, I could do with losing a few pounds, but I do my best. I eat healthily. I don't drink an occasional glass of champagne or wine on a festive occasion, but otherwise, I don't drink every day. I don't smoke cigarettes, all of that. Okay? So, and now they start scratching their heads. They don't know what to do. So there are various things when you have what's called an AFib. So this is an atrial fibrillation. I'm now in atrial fibrillation, which means the atrium chamber is fibrillating, meaning it's not effectively pumping blood. It's there's also an atrial flutter, which is something else, but this is it's sort of, yeah, it's going too fast, so it can't effectively pump. And the complication of atrial fibrillation, let me know if any of you have had it, is that you could have a clot because the blood isn't coming in and leaving in a liquid fluid way. So you could actually have a blood clot, and we know all about blood clots, don't we? Well, we should do. They can lead to strokes. And so regardless of my age, and obviously I'm over 60, so atrial fibrillation could mean a stroke. They generally are concerned that they need to thin your blood, but bear in mind they first have to monitor why this is happening. So, I mean, if you had it happen to you before, you would probably be on blood thinners. I hadn't. I probably had a momentary one in the past somewhere along the line, but I don't think I had this extended. By now it was about an hour and a half that my heart had been beating at this ridiculous rate. They were getting more and more worried. So there's a certain protocol. There's various things you can do. If you've ever had an atrial fibrillation, you can drop down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. It's always useful. I'd love you to go up right now and like this if you're listening and you're watching. It helps me a lot. Many people forget to like. It helps other YouTube to send it out to other people. So one of the things I had to do was blow into an empty syringe, a big syringe. So you blow into that, and maybe the force of this syringe unblocks, for the sake of a more technical word, your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve runs from your brain right down by your stomach, down your legs, right to the bottom of you at your feet. The vagus nerve it controls many of the sympathetic and also the all the functions that you need for breathing and heart rate and whatever. And in fact, one of the treatments for the arrhythmia that I have is that they actually sever the vagus nerve. They cut it deliberately so that it doesn't get activated. So anyway, what they're trying to do now with me blowing into this test tube and various poses, I had to go like that on the side, and then I had to stop with my neck in that pose, is to try and stimulate the vagus nerve to undo what it's doing, because it's not working for you. Thank you for all the likes that you're going to send, and thank you for subscribing if you haven't. So yes, they were trying everything. Another thing is, I don't want to be too graphic, but you have to pretend you'd be sitting on the toilet and use those nerves, because the vagus nerve runs along there, and it can be sort of stimulated that way. Hi Mark, keep talking, good care of yourself. Thank you, Mark. Mark lives in Trento, and I'm taking very good care. As you can see, it's a beautiful sunny day here, Mark. So it was concerning, very concerning. Anyway, they fiddled around for some time, trying every method to try and stop my heart rate from going crazy. I kept begging them to bring me a bedpan so that I could have a pee, and they kept saying, no, we got to do this. Anyway, the cardiologist had been called because it's not such a huge city hospital that there's 3 cardiologists on call. She's on call, obviously, but she's not in the hospital, so they had to call her. And she came and she chatted to me. She looked at my file, and I said to her, the thing that worries me is that I have a loop recorder, so that in the event that something like this happens, um, I've been told that they will call me. And why haven't they called me? I have my phone on me, and I haven't received a call. Well, I haven't heard a call. I haven't blocked my phone. I haven't switched the volume down, so they should be calling me, surely. And she said, yeah, I'll inform them in the morning. Obviously, the section that looks after my arrhythmia. So this kind of concerned me, because one of the reasons I decided to go ahead with having this operation, to have the loop recorder, is so that if something happens to my heart in the night, and it will be automatically recorded on the loop recorder, and I won't have to try and explain to them later the A and the B and the C and the D and whatever, because it's all on there. It records everything. And it's automatically linked to their computer, so they'll pick it up and they'll call me the next morning, or I don't know, that day, and say, come in because we need to see you. But anyway, I was already in emergency, so there was that. They didn't know that, obviously. Well, certainly the loop recorder doesn't automatically know that. So anyway, she said to me, don't worry, I'll tell them in the morning. So anyway, eventually I said to her, please, for the love of all that's good and precious, could you please ask these people to bring me a bedpan, because I can't wait any longer, and we're going to have an accident quite soon because I'm desperate to pee, and I've been begging them since I got here. So she said, sure. Anyway, so they brought a bedpan. It's sort of emergency medicine, so there's people walking by and whatever. I just had to sort of, with my one arm, and by the way, yes, and now they've put another needle in this arm to draw my blood, because they need to test my blood to see if I've had a heart attack, because there's a certain protein that gets released when you have a heart attack in your blood. So now I've got a needle in this arm, which they haven't just taken the blood and taken out. They've left the catheter in this arm, the needle. I've got this one that's already in here since I left home. So I've now got 2 needles. So I can't push myself up. My arms won't work because it's in my elbow, and I'm trying to push myself up to get on this bedpan. It was pretty much a nightmare. And anyway, I managed and finally had the best pee of my life. Sorry about the graphicness, but I was so desperate. I don't have to explain to anyone how wonderful it is when you're desperate to pee and you manage to pee. So I did that. And apparently that, just the force of holding on to that pee, and then obviously being able to relieve myself, jogged something in the vagus nerve. They should have done this when I first came in. And suddenly my heart rate started declining exactly as they wanted, and how they had unsuccessfully managed to make a decline with all the other things they'd done. The vagus nerve was stimulated by me having a pee. Isn't nature wonderful? So she said to me, it looks like your heart is repristina. Repristina means it's gone back to how it should be. It was still slightly elevated, but nowhere near 180 or 160 or whatever. So everybody sort of took the panic in the room down a little bit. Obviously, the panic is made larger by the fact that I have something called long QT, which is a fatal arrhythmia. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but that's how it is. It's also called sudden death syndrome, because if you have this arrhythmia and your heart goes into what is called toussaint, and toussaint, it comes from the French. It means that it's literally like this. The waves of your heart, the whole electric circuitry of your heart gets into a tiz, and it just starts doing this in this funny pattern. And obviously it's not working, it's not pumping blood, and if your heart's not pumping blood, you don't get any oxygen, and you can literally die within moments. Anyway, thank God I didn't go into toussaint, and I started to think, well, I'm so happy that I have the loop recorder, because now they will see what happens when at least have this elevated heart rate called atrial fibrillation. There are other kinds of fibrillation. The bottom chamber of the heart, ventricular fibrillation, can sometimes even be more dangerous because but both of them are a cause for concern, because it means that your heart is not pumping the blood as it should. And that can result in you having a heart attack. Heart attacks come in many shapes and forms. I'm not going to go into it here. But I want to hear from all of you, because I know I have people from all over the world who've been to hospital, who've had various procedures. In fact, my sister has had an ablation because she quite often had exactly this, the racing heart, the atrial fibrillation. And so she had a procedure she, by the way, is a heart specialist, but she had to have this ablation. Okay, so there we are. So now I'm there. I've got a blood catheter in one arm. I've got another one in the other arm. I can't move. They're both hurting like hell. But I've had my pee, and they say to me, okay, she goes away to write up my notes, and she says, we're going to monitor you tonight, and I'm going to get hold of the team in the morning. So I think, okay, fine. So I'm now pushed into you have to get out of the emergency operating theatre, obviously, because they might have another emergency that night. And they pushed me into a side ward. And when I first went in there was one woman, a curtain, and me. But then within a few minutes of me being there, and they set up the monitor again and everything's fine, within a few minutes, they push, a guy comes walking in, a random guy who's obviously come into emergency because he has some chest coughing story. And I'm sort of half naked. There's no curtain on my side because I'm on the wall side, and there's a big heart monitor there. And he just comes flouncing in, and I'm not in a state to be seen, really. So I sort of grab the sheets around me. Anyway, yeah, and I can't move either arm because I've got this. So can't message anybody because my phone's over there in my handbag. So anyway, I rang the bell, they brought me my handbag, and I realized I couldn't even use my thumbs because every movement of the nerves in my arms and every muscle movement, I got stabbed by these 2 needles. So they said, oh, just settle down and have a little sleep. Sure, with 2 needles in both arms that are killing me. I'm quite sensitive to needles being stuck in my arm. Some of us have higher pain thresholds. I don't basically mind what you do to me. You can chop off my leg, but sticking needles in me is my least favorite thing. Let me know in the comments if you're the same. Didn't know what to do. So anyway, I spent a very, very, very restless and annoying night where, oh God, I had people coming to check me regularly. Even though the heart monitor was on, they had to come and it automatically took my blood pressure every so often. Yeah. Drop down in the chat and let me know where you're joining from, which city you're joining from. Thanks for watching. And so yeah, yeah, this is it. So anyway, I then get a message back. The emergency medical doctor comes in again and says, oh hi, ciao. Oh hi, we're just going to monitor you tonight. We don't want to change your protocol. We don't want to put you on any different medicines because we really need you to see the team that manages you. So I said, okay. So I said, what does that mean? So she said, oh, we'll keep you in until we're satisfied. So anyway, I was no closer to anything. And whilst I don't have immediate family who can come and fetch me, like most Italians do, the family, comes and asks all the pertinent questions. The family brings the food and the water or whatever. That's how families operate in Italy. And if you're in hospital without a family, it's not a pleasant experience, trust me, because the staff are used to the family coming to buy the bottle of water, the family coming to make the phone calls and check on them or whatever. Anyway, I managed to send off one SMS. But then I realized everybody in my life is sleeping. It's now 2 o'clock in the morning. And me sending them a message saying I'm in emergency, how does that help them? I'm already in emergency where if anything happened to me, they are the people who would have to deal with it. So me disturbing people by sending them an urgent message in the middle of the night, how does this actually help anybody, least of all my darling friends and my close people? So I decided not to do that. Let me know if I made a mistake. I don't know, maybe I should have let everyone know. It's kind of very long story short. I was in there for a long time, and then eventually there was an ambulance coming to pick up somebody the following day, and I needed to go back home. And because it was a Sunday, there was no taxis, there was not anything. And so after a lot of arguing and blah blah blahing, we decided that the ambulance would come and get me and take me back to my town, because the hospital's in another local town. And when they finally came, the ambulance, two young guys, lovely guys, who had a good chat, they said to me, oh, it's going to be, €65 to take you. It's not really an ambulance, usually it's just a car. I came in the ambulance, that's covered by the state, but going home is not covered. So they said, oh, it's going to be €65. So I thought, why? I said, look, I don't have €65 on me, but when I get home, I've got my card, if that's okay. So they said, no, but it's fine. You can pay by Bonifico, which means you send a bank transfer. Fine. Okay, great. They've got my sanitary card, my health card, so they know all my details. But anyway, then when they came, they said, oh, by the way, there's somebody else we have to pick up to take home who lives near you. So I said, well, hopefully you're going to half the cost of this ambulance then, because 65, I'm not rich. 65. I know for Americans, you probably think going home in an ambulance for 65 is like winning the lottery. But hey, I'm not in America. I'm here in Italy. And I pay my tax and have done for over 20 years. And I'm a citizen. So basically, he says, no. We're taking somebody else also, but they are our family members, so we're not charging them. So I said, well, I'm not paying for your family members. Sorry. No. This isn't going to happen. I might be a stranera, a foreigner, but this isn't going to happen. So they said, well, what do you want us to do? So I said, I'll pay half. I'll pay half. You pay half. They said, well, we can't charge her. She's family. I said, well, then you chip in, but I'm not paying 65 for me to solely have an ambulance when you've, included someone else. I have no problem. So she got the royal treatment. She was on a bed. I had just walked to the ambulance and sat in what they call the sort of dummy seat at the back of the drivers, and they took me home. When I got home, they gave me the form for the Bonifico. So now I'm going to tell you what this costs, how it works in Italy, because you probably want to know, either because you live in Italy or you don't live in Italy and you'd love to live in Italy, all of that stuff, all that pleasant stuff. So let's get to the healthcare stats and how much this cost me and what would happen if it happened to you. People often ask me this, and now that I've covered the emergency. But before we do that, I just want to show you, it is spring. I've already shown you these absolutely gorgeous blossoms. Look what cheered up my life. Aren't these gorgeous? These are lovely daffodils, or narcissi, as the Italians call them. Aren't they gorgeous? Brightening up my day. But not only, I am planting out today some ranunculus. Ranunculus are my favorite spring flower. See if I can do this without tipping these onto the floor. Isn't that beautiful? That's a ranuncula. And maybe I will take a photograph for the thumbnail with these gorgeous ranunculus. Aren't they beautiful? They're full of buds. I've got the lovely yellow daffodils, and then I've got this double white ranunculus that is absolutely gorgeous. Look at it. Aren't they beautiful? I love ranunculus. So anyway, that's my cheerful spring. It's definitely spring today. It's 20 degrees here. I'm sitting in the sunshine. There's all the cherry blossom here in Italy. I wanted to see if this is written on it. It's a plant passport, ranunculus. Let's see. If I put it this way, so you can see what it is. It's a ranunculus. All plants in Europe have to have a plant passport as to where they came from. But I love my double narcissi. Aren't they beautiful? Or daffodils as we call them. So they have the dark, these ones have the darker part in the middle. So anyway, so I just wanted to show you my plants. Okay, so back to how much it costs healthcare in Italy, the nitty gritty. Please go up and like the video if you're watching. I do appreciate it. It helps YouTube to suggest it for other people who may be looking for it. And if you're watching, and I'd love you to watch, and you haven't subscribed, please do. Please go up and like right now. The like button's right there. I do appreciate it. So let's get to this. You can see the beautiful cherry blossom up there next to this gorgeous building that I'm sitting at. Have my brooch on, which was a gift last birthday. So yes, I have to keep these sunglasses on, sorry, because otherwise literally I'll be squinting into this very bright sun. There's a market on today in the town here. But anyway, let me get to the healthcare. So I just already covered the ambulance ride. So if you are a resident in Italy, and the crucial point is being a resident, not just on a visa, not just with permission to stay. If you are a resident, which means that once you get your visa, whatever kind of visa it is, it could be an elective visa, the ERV, it could be, I don't know, whatever kind of permesso soggiorno you're on, you have to go to your comune where you live and register to be resident. And everybody has to do this, whether you're Italian, whether you're whatever you are. You have to be resident in a comune. That's how Italy works. And so if you are a resident and you have been a permanent resident, you automatically then get registered with ASL. You have to go to ASL, as I've mentioned before in the past, and they actually register you. And basically, if you're a permanent resident, you're covered. You just pay a ticket for, like if you went to have an x-ray, you would pay a ticket for that. If you went to have a Doppler record on your heart, you would pay a ticket for that. You pay a ticket and you get your sheet for the booking. You go to the hospital and you go to CUP before you go in. You go to CUP, the section, and they actually advise the doctor who's on duty, who's going to see you, or whatever procedure you're having, that you're here, you've arrived, and you're third in line, or whatever line you're in, regardless of what appointment you've made. That's how it works. And all that has to happen, okay? But let's say you were going privately to see a doctor because you paid and you're not on the healthcare system and you needed to see a cardiologist. You can actually make a private appointment with any doctor in Italy who may be operating in the hospital, maybe the head of department. And I suggest, in terms of cardiology and quite a few other things that I've had to do in my life, if you're having a bone operation, one of your bones, all of those departments, you can make an appointment with the head of department privately. You can't choose your doctor on the health. I'm not talking about your GP. I'm talking about in the hospital. You can't choose your surgeon if you're brought in on an emergency or even on a visit because you have a script from your GP. You can't choose your doctor. You get whoever is on turn. In other words, who's on duty. You get that doctor and they see you, and that's all covered. If you are a permanent resident and if you have the health card, that's all covered, okay? But you can elect to make a private appointment. You have to ask them when you go to CUP to do your booking, to make a private appointment with the primario, which it's called in Italy, the head of department or whatever department you're looking at in Italy. and you can make an appointment with them. It ranges of between 120 and 180 depending on where they are. In Milan, maybe the top specialist would ask more, but basically that's the range. And they operate in the hospital. They also work in the hospital. They're not just private doctors, but they also have a private clinic, and you can either go to their clinic or in some cases make an appointment with them in the clinic they do in the hospital privately. Okay? Because if you come for a visit to see somebody in the cardiology department, you will see who's ever on duty that day. You've been allocated that visit, and that will be covered by your state health. And so that appointment effectively will be free. Okay? If you have to have some extras or whatever, there may be a ticket attached to that. But the ticket really depends on the cost of this thing that you're having done. I've had x-rays in the past which I needed urgently because I had a meeting with my doctor, so I wanted to have the x-ray in my hand. If you're prepared to wait the week or the two for them to tell you when it's ready and you go in and pick it up, but if you want it urgently, you can pay extra. So it could range from €10 for the ticket up to 100, but it's not a lot of money. Okay, but you do have to, it's not completely free, the state system. But in the case where you wanted to see a particular cardiologist, and in my case, there are very few electrophysicists for the heart. So I need what's called an EP, and that's a person who looks at the electrical systems of the heart, is specialized in that. I can't always find one, and certainly there's a couple in the country and they make appointments in each region maybe once a month. So in my region, Piemonte, I might have to go to Torino, which is the largest city with the largest hospital, and there may be a visit from Milan, and there's probably 2 or 3 in Milan. So just to give you some idea. Okay, so you can elect to have a private visit with a cardiologist who's head of department, but you pay for that visit privately. If he then wants to operate on you, it doesn't mean automatically that you will have a private operation, which could be, tens of thousands if it's a heart operation. But he will then put you on his slate. He will work with his slate, with his team in the hospital where he's located, and he will put you on that slate. You may have to wait 2 months, 3 months, whatever. But that operation, providing you have a health card in Italy and you're a permanent resident, will be covered. Okay? Just to let you know, because people get panicky about this. And so I've wanted to cover this in the past, and I'm covering it now again. But if you just went to the visit and they said, look, we're going to put a stent in, or we're going to, I don't know, do an ablation, whatever, then the team would manage that and it would all be covered, okay? But just because you see a specialist privately, if he then has to operate on you afterwards, it doesn't mean that the whole process is then private. The whole operation is private. It simply means that you've seen him, he's made a decision, and he will operate on you in the hospital. Okay. He or she. In my case, it's always been he's, but the cardiologist that I'm seeing tomorrow on my follow-up is a she. Okay, so for my cardiologist visit tomorrow, because it was as a result of the emergency, I didn't have to go and ask my GP for a special script, but normally you would ask for a first visit. And how that works is your GP is free. The visits to your GP are free. But if you need something special, like you need a medical certificate because you're doing a driver's license, whatever, your GP may charge for that extra service. But to have a visit with your GP, which by the way, you have to make an appointment with her secretary, her receptionist, that is free if you are registered in Italy as a resident under the state health and you have a card. They will have all your details. They will be your doctor, your family doctor, as it's called, your medico convenzionato in Italy is called, or medico di famiglia, your family doctor, your GP. they actually, you can see them free, and they will make any further scripts you need to see specialists. Okay. And then you either have to get online to ASL because there's an online booking system, or you have to go to your ASL locally and they will allocate you an exact appointment to see that specialist in that hospital. Okay? That's how it works, and it's all covered. But there are circumstances in which you may decide, and this has happened to two of my friends in the last few months, where you don't want to wait 6 months to be operated on in the state health system. Because your thing is urgent, but just as the nature of state healthcare goes, there's lots of people ahead of you in the queue. You can elect to have that operation done privately. So in the case of my friend, she needed her eyes operated on for I think it was a cataract surgery, and she needed that, and it was urgent, and there was a 2-year waiting list to have it done on the state, and she elected that she couldn't wait 2 years, and that she was going to go ahead and with her private specialist book this operation to be done in the hospital but at private rates. And obviously it's not open heart surgery, which would be a lot more, but it cost her, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 euro to have this operation and the care afterwards. So just in case, there is always that option if it's something urgent and you need to have it done. Obviously, in the case of cancer, life-saving stuff, generally the waiting list moves more quickly according to priority. But yeah, there is the waiting list thing, and that's the case of all social medicine all over Europe. You obviously have to wait for all the others ahead of you in the queue, unless you're literally going to die, in which case you're taken to emergency and you jump the queue, obviously. If it's a matter of you'll be dead in hours if you don't have the surgery. So yeah, I hope that covers some of it. I haven't covered all of it, but there has been some concern recently with people who came on an IRV here that you have to have the first year, you have to have major medical. But that basically covers an emergency thing in a hospital. If you have major medical needs, like you're diabetic, or you I don't know, you could have a thyroid, you have what's called a chronic condition which requires constant medication, constant monitoring, you could need dialysis, all that sort of stuff. The insurance that you purchase must be looked at according to that. Sure, you also have to have emergency hospital visit. That means that if you fell down in the street or had a car accident while you were here and you just arrived in your first year of an IRV visa or whatever visa you came in on, and you're not European Union, yeah, that insurance would cover that. Accident insurance, hospital visit insurance. But for all the other stuff, you will be analyzed according to what your chronic condition is. And generally you could get, I say this with reservation because, you know, there's always exceptions to the rule, and it really depends on you and your situation. But to cover an average person for your annual medical needs on the state health system until you can become a permanent resident and get free health, it's about 2,000 euro a year. Okay, which is pretty good. If you're coming from the States, you probably think that that's a bonus. Obviously, if you're European Union, you would register as a resident, and when you get your residency, then you go on the state health system. So yeah, so that's how it works. But in terms of an ambulance, on the way home, you have to pay for the ambulance. If let's say you call an ambulance to your house and it wasn't needed, you stubbed your toe, they would try and not send an ambulance by literally talking to you beforehand. You have to have the call, you have to call them, and they have to ascertain, I mean, is this a real case? Does she need an ambulance? Or in fact, can she just find her own way to the emergency? So, I mean, if you stubbed your toe, you wouldn't call an ambulance. you would get someone to drive you to the hospital. If you couldn't get somebody to drive you to the hospital, you could take a taxi to the hospital. Or I guess you could also pay for a service they have that would take you. Okay? But it's a private service that works in combination with the health service. But my ambulance going home, because I elected to do it because there were no taxis on that Sunday when I got released, got discharged, that ambulance would have to have your dismission form from the hospital. And that's the only reason they could take you. You can't just hijack an ambulance somewhere and say, take me home, how much do you want to pay me? It's all regulated. So they would have you demission from the hospital and clear that, and then that's how it works. And then in my case, I paid via a bank transfer. But if I had cash on me, I could have paid him in cash. I just elected to do the bank transfer, which reminds me I need to do that this week. And yeah, if you have any other questions or there's any other things you want to tell me of how I could have or shouldn't have or might have or would have managed my heart situation better or worse, let me know. And if you have some other questions, hello Anne, look after yourself, Amanda. These are two of my regulars. It's so lovely to see you, Anne from Dublin in Ireland. Hi Anne. And Mark Piritano, who's on an elective visa in Trento in Italy. So yeah, maybe one day I'll interview Mark so those of you coming here on the earth can see. Please go up and like the video right now if you haven't. Helps me a lot and helps YouTube to push this video to other people. And please leave me a comment. I know you've probably left a comment in the chat, but when you watch this back, could you go and leave me a comment on the video? It all helps with engagement and helps YouTube, as I mentioned, to suggest this. So from this very beautiful summer's day here in Italy with this bluest of blue skies and these absolutely gorgeous cherry trees blooming on my blue sky day, and my absolutely gorgeous narcissi and my ranunculus. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you on the next one. See you soon, guys. Thank you for joining the live, and if you watch it back, let me know. I want to hear from you. Don't forget to like. I'm waiting for the likes. See you on the next one. From Amanda here in Italy. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Spring has sprung. See you soon. Tell me in the comments if you're watching for the first time. I need to hear from you. Bye.